guys, and happy Monday. I'm Monica, and today I'm going to bring you along for my Mamaw's dinner roll recipe. It is very dear to my heart. This woman made rolls every place she went. If there was a thing at church, she was the one bringing the dinner rolls. If it was Sunday dinner, which we would do every Sunday, there were dinner rolls. Like, the world was ending if there were not these dinner rolls. And they are so light and so buttery and just, they're delicious. So I hope that you stick around and watch as we make this labor of love dinner roll recipe. So the first thing that you want to do is have a big bowl. You want a 1/4 cup of hot water, but not boiling. You want to be able to stick your finger in it. If the water is too hot, then it's not going, it's going to kill the yeast. And then you'll have to start over. So, 1/4 cup of water. And then you want 2 1/4 teaspoons of yeast. Or if you use the packets, you want a packet of yeast. And just put it in your water. And we're going to let this proof for 5 to 10 minutes. You'll know when it's ready because it'll be bubbly. And you'll be able to smell the yeast. So, 5 minutes. Okay, now while your yeast is proofing, you're going to want to get the next step going. And that is going to be your cup of milk, 3 tablespoons of butter, 3/4 teaspoons of salt, and 2 tablespoons of sugar. Now, this is my Mamaw's recipe for it. And I've had to kind of work with it because she wouldn't give me an exact amount. It would be like 2 to 3 tablespoons of sugar, you know, couple 1 to 2 teaspoons of salt, and 3 to 4 cups of flour. And like, it wasn't exact. And so with bread, you kind of want exact, at least to a point, but there's room to play because depending on, come here. Depending on the humidity of your house and the temperature of your house, it's going to cause a difference in your bread making. So, I can see why she had it kind of around about measurements. But let's put, essentially all we're doing is warming up these next few ingredients. There's 2 and 3. We're warming them up till the butter's melted. We're not boiling anything. We're just heating it up to about 115 degrees. And I'm eyeballing it. I'm not putting a thermometer in. Sugar, that's what we need. We need sugar. And you could definitely use a saucepan, but I only have 1 saucepan. All of my stuff is cast iron, except for one saucepan and then my big stock pot. So there's 1 tablespoon, 2 tablespoons. And we already put our salt in. And now we're just going to let this chill out and melt and come together, and then once it is hot, I'm going to turn it off and then put it on off the heat and let it cool down. Okay, so step number 3. Step 1, we put the 1/4 cup of water with our 2 1/4 teaspoons of yeast or 1 yeast packet and let it proof. While this was proofing, we went to step 2 and we heated up 3 tablespoons of butter, 2 tablespoons of sugar, 3/4 teaspoons of salt, and a cup of milk. And we have that in our saucepan now. It's heated up and now it's cooling. So while it's cooling, we move to step 3. And that is 1 egg. Put it in your yeast and water. And then 1 cup of flour. And you can use any flour that you want. And then I'm just going to take a whisk to get my egg beat up. You could do this in a stand mixer if you wanted with a dough hook. However, I have a roast going in the crock pot on my counter, and so that pretty much uses up all my counter space. So I don't have room for that. So I'm just doing it by hand. And now it's stuck. Stuck. And this is what it's going to look like. You're not making bread yet. You're just essentially giving your yeast someone to chill out with. And half the time my mamaw didn't use a mixer anyway. Or she'd use beaters, because she didn't have a dough hook or anything. She would use a hand mixer with beaters on it, and that's how she would make hers. Okay, so step 3 is done. Step 4, take your cooled down mixture of your milk and sugar and flour, or no, your milk, sugar, salt, and butter. And we're going to pour it in with another cup of flour. Now you don't want your mixture too hot, because again, you're going to kill your yeast, and you don't want to do that. Also, just a little quick tip, whenever you're getting flour out of like a bag or canister or whatever, don't scoop it, pour it in. Because if you scoop it, I know, if you scoop it, then you're going to pack it in, and you're going to actually get too much flour in whatever recipe you're using. But if you pour it, it stays fluffy, and you're not packing it down. So just a little tip for you. Here, you want that? And then this dough, it's not going to be like a normal bread dough. These are yeast rolls, and so it's going to be shaggy looking. We just want to get it enough to where it's pliable so we can start kneading it. So that was 2 cups. We're going to add our 3rd cup in of flour. And see if that's good enough to start kneading it. Because it's not going to form a ball. It is, I had that problem when I first started making these, or trying to make her recipe. I always tried to get it into a ball, and I kept adding more and more and more flour because it just wasn't turning into a ball on my electric mixer. And then I would have this super dense roll, and then I actually watched her do it one time, and I realized that I was doing it all wrong. Okay, so this is about what you want it to look like. It's now pliable, and everything is mixed in for the most part. So I'm going to get us a floured surface where we're going to add up to another cup of flour. But we're going to watch, because we don't want to add too much, because again, we don't want a dense roll. We want a nice fluffy yeast roll. Okay, so I moved you over to my floured surface. That is not happy with me. Okay, moved you over to my floured surface. Hopefully the lighting is okay, because I don't have any space on my counter. And my mama would always do hers on her kitchen table. Oh, and this is my kitchen table. Okay, so get your shaggy looking dough onto wherever you're gonna do your kneading. And again, you could use a dough hook if you wanted to use a dough hook. I really like kneading dough by hand. It's therapeutic. If you have a lot of pent up anger, you can have a really really nice kneaded dough of bread. Get out all that anger and frustration. Alright, and I'm going to flour my hands, flour this, and we're just going to start kneading it. Just get messy with it. Yeah, get messy with it. And we're going to knead, oh yeah, there you go, little hands in my flour. We're going to knead it until it's very elastic, and then we'll let it rise. And again, don't add too much flour. Like, there's my cup, but I may not add all of it. I'm only going to add until it's the consistency that we're looking for. Okay, so you know your dough's done when it's not sticky. I mean, you can touch it, it's not sticking to our surface, and it bounces back. That's when you know that your dough is done. And my mamaw, she, like I said, she made this so much, I don't even think she measured her stuff anymore. She was just like, throw this in, throw a little bit of this in, and then it's all good to go. Okay, so that is exactly how we want it. See how it bounces back? It means all those gluten strands are doing their thing like they're supposed to. That is exactly what we want. So I'm using the same bowl. You want to get some oil. Pour some oil in. Have your bowl nicely oiled. And then go ahead and get some of the oil on your dough. This is what my mamaw did, and it made the best rolls. So that is how I do it. I do it like her. There's no need to change a recipe when it works. And then plop that in there. We're going to cover it with a damp towel and then put it in a warm place. This is going to rise for about 2 hours. It is a long rise to give it the really light, airy, fluffy, soft rolls. So that was another mistake that I used to do, is rush the rise time. So you're going to rise it for between 1.5 hours and 2 hours. Essentially, once this dough is almost to the top of our bowl, that's when we know that it's time to go to our next step. So now we're going to make our rolls and then let them rise again. I have my oven preheating to 350. I have oil in my pan. Now you can use a casserole dish. My mama always used a 9x13 casserole dish. But I like it in my cast iron because it gives the edges like a little crisp. I really enjoy that. So I have some oil down in my pan, and then you're just gonna take, see how it deflates? See if I can. You can actually see what I'm doing. Okay. So you just take, I usually put some oil on my hands. So what my mama always did. So you put some oil on your hands, and then you grab your dough, and you just make it like that. So you pinch the bottom part, and then you put it in your pan with the ugly side down. And I do not get uniform with these. I mean, I try, but with everything going on, it's pretty impossible. But what you're going to do is, after you're done making your little rolls, you're going to put them in a warm place again and let them double in size. And usually it just takes the amount of time for my oven to preheat, but it's usually 20-30 minutes sometimes. The top shelf for about 10 minutes, or top rack, and then I'll put them on the bottom rack for the last few minutes, 10 minutes, 5 minutes, so that the bottom gets done. And that's usually how I do it. So 15 to 20 minutes, and I will bring you back to try out these. Alright, so this is how they've set up when I'm done. And this isn't all of it. I have some left over that I'm just going to throw in the freezer for a quick couple rolls if I have leftovers or something. It freezes really nicely. But I fill it up, whatever pan I'm using or casserole dish, I'll fill it up, but I like to leave a little space because these are going to double in size and then they're going to rise more once they're in the oven. So just be aware of that. If you pack everything in real tight, it's going to look like one big poof ball of rolls, which, I mean, if you like that, then great. But I'm going to just set this here, let it rise again while my oven's preheating, and then I'll bring you back. Okay. So this is what the rolls look like after they've risen a second time for about 30 minutes. Now they're going in our 350-degree oven, 15 to 20 minutes, and make sure you watch them because you may need to move them either up closer to the top heating element or down the bottom rack to brown the bottom. So just make sure you watch. Okay, so this is what they look like when they are all done. You have a nice golden brown on top. And then the final touch is to roll some butter on top. Now you could use melted butter and a basting brush or something to that effect. I don't have that, so I just get a stick of butter and just rub it on each of them. Try not to poke holes in them. And this just makes, it's like the icing on your cake. And now you have delicious buttery rolls for dinner. I'll show you what they look like. Yeah, you get one. See, they're perfectly golden brown on top and bottom. And look at that. Does that not look perfect? Ooh. Perfect, light, fluffy, buttery, delicious. So I hope that you enjoyed the special recipe that is near and dear to my heart, and try it for yourself. If you have never tried to make yeast rolls, they really are fabulous. So until next time, guys, thanks for watching.